Welcome back to A View to a Grill. I'm Johnny, and today we're going to be smoking up some ribs on the Golden's cast iron Kamado. And we're going to start the day before with rib prep. Once you get your ribs out of the package, just give them a quick look and see what you might want to trim off. Now, I like to pull the membrane off the back. Just find a way to get a grip on the membrane and then just pull it right off. The only thing that I felt like I needed to trim off was this little flap right on the back of the bones. Now let's salt the ribs. I'll be using Morton's kosher salt. We're going to want to salt both sides and then get them on the rack and in the refrigerator. I'll let these set up overnight. And now it's the day of the cook. You're going to want to take your ribs out about an hour to an hour and a half before you get them on the Kamado. We just put them right on the counter while we set up our Kamado. Today I will be using the Golden's cast iron brand of lump charcoal, which is a mix of oak and mesquite. And also I have some leftover charcoal already in the Kamado. We're going to clean that up and use that as our reserve fuel. To that I'll add a few lumps of oak, and right on top of that I'll put some of the larger lumps of charcoal. I have my chimney starter filled up about halfway, but in the chimney starter I'm going to be using some smaller chunks of lump. We'll start up the chimney starter, and while that's getting started, let's go ahead and season our ribs. Today I'm just using a blend of salt, pepper, and garlic with some onion powder and paprika. I'll get that into a shaker. It's about a 4-to-1 ratio. I would have used more paprika, but that was all I had. Now we'll be sure to mix that really well. I'll also be using some Worcestershire sauce as a binder today. We'll just get some of that on and then spread it around evenly. Take our rub that we made earlier, and starting on the bone side of the ribs, we'll just season that nice and evenly all the way down. While the bone sides are still up, we're going to make sure that we get all of the edges. Now we get it turned over, and since we've already seasoned all of the edges, now all we have to do is season the top. We'll just set that to the side, and since our chimney starter is ready, we're going to get that into the Kamado and bring the Kamado up to temp. We're going to start by putting in our sear plate and 2 grates. Put a second level of grates, but at this time I'm only going to put one side in. Today we'll be using the square dot to monitor the ambient temperature of the Golden's cast iron Kamado. Now all we have to do is close the lid and start bringing this up. Bringing the Kamado up to temp like this is going to let us get rid of all of this bad smoke. We're going to start off with having the top vent wide open and the bottom vent wide open. Our target temperature is going to be 280 degrees. I'll wait for our ambient temperature to get to 240 degrees, and once it does, I'm going to go ahead and close the bottom vent by half and the top vent by half. And then at 260 degrees, I'll close the bottom vent by half again. I'll leave the top vent alone. And then again at 270 degrees, I'll go ahead and close the bottom vent by half again. The top vent, I'm going to leave that right where it is. Once we reach 275 degrees, I'm going to leave the bottom vent right where it is and start to close the top vent by half. And for this particular day, that's all the adjustments we had to make to get to our target temperature. Now I let that go for another 5 minutes to clear up any bad smoke, and now it's time to get the ribs on. I'm going to use this sheet pan as my drip pan slash water pan. I'm just going to get that on the first tier of grates, and then I'll get some hot water and pour that right in. Now I'm going to place in the other grate, and now I'll just get the ribs on. And I left the ribs right on that baking grid. Just set it right on the grates. I'll insert the meat probe and then close the lid. Now all we have to do is just monitor the ambient temperature. Now since we added ribs and a water pan to our cooking environment, it had a little trouble getting the heat back up to 280 degrees. So I had to go back and make another vent adjustment. And all I did was just open the top vent just a little bit. I know that a little bit is a technical term, right? But that's what it was. It was just a little bit. Now an hour in, let's check our ribs. The bark is getting there, not quite set. So we'll just close the lid and let it go for, I'm guessing, another 15 to 20 minutes. 15, 20 minutes later, our bark is set, and now it's time to spritz our ribs. Today I am using a 50-50 mix of water and pickle juice. Also, check out this smokestack. Our smoke is so clear that you can't even see it now. Now we'll just get our ribs spritzed, and I'm going to be doing this about every 15 minutes until our internal temperature of the ribs reach 165 degrees. And while we're going through this spritzing process, I want you to notice the temperature. From the point of me opening the vent to get it back to 280, I haven't had to make any vent adjustments during this entire spritzing process. The Golden's cast iron Kamado held that temp basically all on its own. Now our ribs are at its internal temperature of 165 degrees. At this point, it's time to wrap our ribs. We're going to use paper for this cook. And when I'm using paper, I like to spritz the paper before I put my ribs down. So we'll get the paper spritz, put the ribs meat side up, spritz the ribs also, get them turned over, spritz the back, then we'll get them wrapped up, put the ribs back on the Kamado, and then spritz the wrapper again. And now all we have to do is close it up. And for the second part of the cook, I'm also going to raise my target temperature to 300 degrees. And another thing I did was take out the meat probe. That meat probe was only there to guide me to when I needed to wrap. From here on out, I'll be using my ThermaPen 1 to check for tenderness as well as internal temp, but really we're going by tenderness. I'll give these ribs about an hour and then we'll check them again. Not quite done. The sun was glaring off of that and I did not know the camera was picking that up, but we're not done. We're going to spritz the bag again and close the lid. So 45 minutes, an hour later, I gave the ribs a kind of a twist test, and if it feels like they're going to come apart, that's the kind of feeling you want if you're using this method to tell if your ribs are done. They felt like they were going to come apart, so the ribs are done. Now I'm going to leave these ribs on the rack, get them on a cutting board, and I'm also going to leave them wrapped while they rest. While they're resting, I'm going to go and do some maintenance on the Kamado. I'll just use my whisk broom, brush off anything that I don't want on the Kamado. When you're using cast iron, before and after every use, you should have a can of spray oil handy and just give it a light coating with your spray oil. And now I'll just close the top vent as well as the bottom vent and let the Kamado snuff itself out. Now let's go check on these ribs. Now I'll just get them unwrapped and cut a rib off. And take a look at that deep smoke ring. Nailed it. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, please consider following me on Instagram. Now let's take a taste. No words were needed. Now if you want to see more videos on the Golden's cast iron Kamado, go ahead and take this time and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching a View to a Grill. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, y'all.